Hi Equestrians, welcome to Calibo Yoga. I am Makayla Wheaton, the owner and founder of Calibo Yoga, and today I want to talk to you about a recent reflection I had. I realized driving home in my car from actually being able to teach at a women's retreat, and I realized equestrians are badasses. That's the only way I can say it, just to fully admire and connect to just how much we do and how much we put ourselves through in the horse world. This is also the exact reason why equestrians need yoga. We have to be able to balance out the doing, the pushing forward, the more masculine sides of horse care with feminine sort of things, not the gendered feminine, but more of the spiritual feminine of rest and recovery and softness. The first thing I want to talk about and just fully acknowledge is being an equestrian is truly a lifestyle, and it comes with a lot of physical and emotional hardships. Physically, we're doing horse chores, we're mucking stalls, moving water buckets, putting our body through these really hard tasks each day because we have horses at home or we're at a boarding facility but we're still doing the work. Whatever your situation may be, horse chores are never done. And then beyond that, we're also riding. And as much as we love to ride our horses, that's also very hard on our body. It's demanding us to not only be strong enough to stay centered, stay on, but we have to be flexible enough to move with our horse. So physically, we're putting a lot of wear and tear on our body every day as an equestrian, even if it's something we really want to do. Then we have the emotional side. Our horses get sick, they get injured. We ourselves are putting so much pressure to be the best that we can be enough, be good enough, be whatever word comes to mind. I'm sure we all have one. But this emotional side of the equestrian lifestyle is not talked about enough. The equestrian lifestyle is hard. It's not an easy one. It's one that we walk into almost blindly a lot of times as kids or teenagers getting into, especially the competitive world, which is what I came from. No one ever warned me how hard mentally the sport would be. Physically, I was like, yeah, my body's tired, I'm doing all these things, but mentally, the challenge of feeling the need to ride at the caliber of the barn I was at the time was really demanding, and it took a lot of a mental toll on me, and it led to anxiety in the barn that I still have to work on today. So after this overview of the physical and emotional hardships of being an equestrian, I want to dive in a little bit deeper and then relate these mini topics or subtopics to yoga philosophy, because that is what I absolutely love and what I want to bring you with Calibo Yoga. So to start, I want to talk a little bit about how riding and taking lessons, even competing, teaches us to look for perfection, to look for perfectionism in ourselves, in our horses, in our rides, because the goal is to have a perfect ride. Well, the perfect ride never exists because we're two living beings with both have brains, sovereignty both have brains and sovereignty over our behaviors and actions. So the perfect ride doesn't exist, but having this pressure to have the perfect ride, to be good enough, leads to riders taking that level of perfectionism off the mat. I know for me in school, I found it really hard to struggle and not get the A and not do the absolute best I possibly could, but what I wasn't realizing is I was doing the best I could. It was that the class was challenging, or maybe the teacher's style didn't work with my learning style, and that's okay. Where yoga can play a really great role in combating perfectionism is that yoga teaches you contentment. You learn to be in your body, in your mind, and not only accept, but love the challenge or the obstacles that you're facing. Yoga teaches you contentment through what is also known as Santosa. Santosa is the Sanskrit word for contentment, and through Santosa, You just learn how to drop into the moment and accept it for what it is. And sometimes that looks like knowing that today might not be your best day because you're sick, you're mentally fatigued, whatever may be going on, and also recognizing that within your horse. They have bad days just like we do, and there's a certain level of contentment for what will come, and we can't always control it. The second subtopic I want to talk about is how equestrians learn to push through. We're always just doing what needs to be done. Maybe it's that last stall before we leave for the day. It's taking our horse out even when our body's not up for it. But we're so ingrained with this idea of we have to do it all, we have to be the best, we have to be enough, that we end up also teaching ourselves that pushing limits and pushing past is to be worn like a badge of honor. This gets really dangerous when pushing limits leads to fatigue, and that fatigue can lead to dangerous situations, even if we're not riding but on the ground with working with horses. When we're not fully alert, dangerous things can happen. We're working with huge live animals. That's something that we all have come to accept, especially if you've been a lifelong equestrian, is that there is a certain level of risk. But we have to take into account that always pushing past our limits isn't going to keep us safe. I had to learn this the really hard way when I was going between multiple barns. I was a working student, taking lessons, all the things, but I realized that I wasn't fueling my body correctly. So I was getting hungry, pushing through the hunger to take care of the horse, instead of just taking a second to grab a granola bar or whatever it was that I had brought with me. So that's just one way that I noticed I was putting myself in harm's way because I wasn't fueling my body to keep showing up for the horses that I genuinely did want to show up for, both as a working student and as a personal owner. This idea of pushing past limits leads us into the yoga philosophy word of Bramacharya, or balance and moderation. So finding balance between pushing through and, yes, doing what needs to get done, and recognizing that not every day means you get everything done, allows you to maybe slow down or take breaks or find ways to delegate tasks so that not everything falls on your plate. And full disclosure, I am really bad at delegating tasks. A lot of times for me, that's not possible. And so it means that one day I know, okay, I'm doing more stalls than usual today. The work I'm doing with my horse isn't going to be as vigorous because I know what I need to do for my body, so that the following day I can still get up and perform at the level that I want to. It also means that finding balance also includes our horses. If they had a really hard ride the day before, they might just need a lot of extra walking today, or vice versa, like it could flop. But the idea is yoga teaches balance because showing up in a physical sense on your mat every day, doing the hot yoga, doing the power sequences like vinyasa, your body can't do that every day long term. There are going to be times when your body needs rest and recovery. The next subset I want to talk about is how, as equestrians, we are gifted with this ability to connect with animals. And I think for a lot of us, that's very intuitive, it's very natural. We don't really think about how we're connecting with our animals until we talk to someone who isn't a horse person, and then we realize, oh, yeah, I guess I do connect to animals easier than people who aren't around animals, aren't working with horses, etc. The one issue with being so easily connected to our animals is, at least from my own experience, we forget to connect to ourselves and allow ourselves to tune inward. So this looks like knowing how our horse is feeling, but not knowing how we're feeling in the moment. Or we know how our horse is feeling, they're feeling anxious, frisky, whatever, and in order to control the situation, we push back our own fatigue, maybe our own anxiety, our own anger at the situation, because we have to cater to our horse. And while that is very honorable to do and the right thing to do so that we don't overreact, we as equestrians need to remember to take time to connect with ourselves. And that's where yoga comes in. Yoga, only the word, means connecting or union between the body and the mind. That's what I love about the physical practice of yoga, is it gets me back into my own body, so I can take a step away from my equestrian self and tune inward and start to connect with what I need, what I'm looking for, and what my body's asking for that day. The last thing I want to talk about is how equestrians are true athletes, and this isn't talked about enough. Not only, like I mentioned before, riding and being an equestrian is a physical thing, but it's also a very mentally stimulating sport. We're making decisions on the fly. We're asking our body to hold tight in places and release in others. The list goes on and on. We might even cross-train outside of our riding career, which is incredibly important for safety of joints and muscles, not just relying on the ones we use in the saddle or during horse chores, but by cross-training, we help support our bodies. The one thing about being true athletes, without a rigorous program like football players, and maybe this is completely ignorant of myself, but we don't always put in recovery days for ourselves. A lot of horses have recovery days. A day off or two per week is pretty common in training barns, but on your horse's day off, what are you doing? And vice versa, like, when is your time off and when is your time on in terms of being an athlete, showing up? And I'm speaking in a very physical sense of letting your body recover, but also your mind. And sometimes this means taking a trip and moving away from your horses, asking someone else to watch them. And it's a very privileged thing to be able to do that. But I've always noticed that taking a step back from being an equestrian with horses at home, going on vacation somewhere, even if it's just for a few days, I come back with more energy, I'm refreshed, I'm ready to get going, and it helps me recover from the strain of being an equestrian. In yoga, this type of non-harming behavior is associated with Ahimsa. Ahimsa can mean non-harming, non-violence. It also means like kindness to yourself and others. So through Ahimsa, an equestrian can look at themselves and recognize if the way they are living is harmful to them long term, or if it's in a way that protects their body and mind to continue to be an equestrian for the rest of their lives. I hope that today's short little episode about how incredibly strong equestrians are really inspired you to not only reflect upon how you're spending your equestrian life, but also recognize how much power and strength you have for being an equestrian. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them down below. And as always, please subscribe, maybe even enter into my newsletter and email group by visiting my website. I hope to meet you all soon, and I hope you have a lovely day. Bye.